Welcome back to the Mindfully Gay podcast. I'm Jerry, joined by Nick and John. How's it going, guys?
Fantastic, Jerry, especially with today's theme, gay gifts and blessings.
Yes, it's a great change of pace. Today is about the joys and unique strengths of our queer lives.
We'll share our own triumphs and explore how these gifts enrich our community.
And we'd love to hear from you too. Think about the blessings in your own queer journey.
So let's dive in and celebrate all the positives together.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're listening to us, good day.
I love
it. So, first of all, I just want to mention we're starting to hear from people through Instagram, Facebook, text messaging, stalking at the gym. I mean, we're hearing from people.
The hookup apps, it's happening there too.
Yeah, they are.
But it's exciting to kind of, we've had a few events, like when we did the waffle breakfast, and you said, how many people have been listening to the podcast? And like almost everyone raised their hand, and I was like, okay, we have 12 fans.
Thanks, listener.
But sometimes when you do this, you feel like you're in this vacuum.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. We're loving the feedback. There's been a few topics put out there to us that we certainly have on our agenda. But we wanted today, we were just reflecting on, we've talked about a lot of the challenges of being gay,
right,
and how that shows up in the societal dialogue. And I brought up, and I've done this with clients before, and it always surprises me, because I'll get a client who wants to come in and it's like, oh, being gay is so hard. Gay people are mean to me. But, there's like this negative narrative.
Sure.
I'm afraid to come out because of all these problems with being gay. And I will often ask the question, have you ever considered what the blessing or the gift of being gay is about?
Wow.
And
it's tough. We don't think about that.
And it's met with that kind of response because people are just like, you can feel their brain coming to a screeching halt. Like, wait, that's not in my. I haven't considered.
Don't
that.
allow myself. That. Right.
Yeah, just not even in your consciousness, like you said. It's just not in the repertoire of thinking about. Oh, I can think of being gay as a positive thing.
Yeah. We kind of like our martyr syndrome. No.
It happens.
I mean, we build an identity around our experiences, and sometimes we build that around the victim or the martyr, and that's not to say those things are not legitimate.
Right.
But one of the reasons I keep, and I'm not going to rehash the details of it, but when I've talked about indigenous societies and their relationships with people who are outside the gender or sexual orientation norms, two-spirited, and how they were gifts, they were seen as blessings to the tribe. That just shifts people's perspectives. So I thought it would be really interesting for us, especially as we get closer to the Pride month of June, that it might be nice to talk about the gifts and the blessings and how being gay is a positive thing in our lives. So I don't know. I'm talking a lot. I will pause. And
this is fascinating because, like you said, it's just something that we don't tend to automatically think about as far as kind of the positive aspects of being gay. We steer very sharply towards the martyrdom, the victimization, things like that. And I know I can certainly do that, and that's certainly the narrative that is put out there. But now, as I'm reflecting on this topic, what are the blessings? What are the gifts of being gay? When I think about just my personal journey, gosh, I'm smiling because mine seem kind of, I don't know what the word is. I don't want to say arbitrary because that's not the right word, but here's the story that just kind of popped up in my head in regards to why I like why I like being gay. I feel as if I have I don't want to say an upper hand, but I feel like I have some sort of an advantage or a better connection, I think, to women.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. No, I agree. I'm thinking about my mother so much, but yes. Sorry. Keep going. Yeah. Yes.
Maybe that's because I've been able to tap into perhaps my feminine side. I don't know. But I feel like I'm able to tap into the traits and qualities of being a female or feminine traits, qualities, and then be able to reflect that with other women.
For sure.
And then do that with men too. So I feel, I don't know, because when I think about my relationships, I have many relationships with women, and I feel like I have very good relationships with women that are not, they're not dating, certainly they're not relationship oriented, certainly not sexual for me, but I've got these really good bonds with women, and I feel that's because I'm gay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Like you're saying this, and I'm just, that's why I couldn't control it. Like, yes, I full-throated, agree with that. And you get, it's a connection. It's a closer connection, frankly, than probably most straight dudes in platonic relationships in platonic relationships with females have. We get that. We get to have a closer connection. We aren't a threat to the female. In fact, the female is even maybe more open to knowing who we are, and it becomes vice versa, and the connection is just tighter. And it's same. I have so many really wonderful relationships with females, and I respect them. I get to know them. I understand some of the struggles. I can relate, but moreover, I appreciate the power in them, the strength that they have, and yeah, you get to experience that better because we're gay, I think.
Yeah, just kind of bottom line, because of that, that fact. But I really haven't dove deep into, what are those intricacies about those relationships that make them so well connected. All I can say is blanketly say, well, I think it's just because I'm gay, and I can relate a little easier.
Well, I want to see if I can frame it this way, because this is how I relate to it. I feel like I can only speak of the perspective of a gay man, but as a gay man, I don't feel rigidly defined by a gender norm. I think if I were a heterosexual male, there are certainly nuances to how I can and cannot show up in the world. But by being gay, right, there's this deliberate abandonment of being restrictive in some way.
Give more of a choice, maybe.
Yeah, and so for me, I feel like I don't identify as non-binary or trans. I identify as a male and gay. But I feel as if I am allowed fluidity to show up in whatever division of that masculinity that I carry. I feel like it's a much broader continuum than most men, and I think what gay men bring into relationships, for instance, with women, is the ability to not feel restrained. Whether we're conscious of it or not, certainly the stereotype is that we can be one of the girls.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's how I think about it. I don't know that I do have some female friends, and it's interesting. I feel like I have conversations with them that I often think they wish they could have with their heterosexual male companions.
Right. Exactly.
And I think it's interesting when I've interacted even with heterosexual men. Like in a lot of the spirituality work that I do, it's interesting how many of the straight men, and I feel like the younger straight men are not as restrictive as the older straight men.
Yeah, right. For sure.
But I certainly feel like they're so hungry to have some of that male intimacy in terms of being able to talk and to connect. Bruce and I had this friend for years, straight guy who would come to the lodges all the time. And of course, our gay friends would come to the lodge and we would be all hugging and everything. And for a while, he'd come in and be like, shake our hands.
Yeah.
And
He's like Buster.
And,
It's Buster versus
yeah.
Is it safe? Is it okay?
Buster's our dog who's a little timid.
But he wants the love so much.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting. One day our friend came in, and a couple of guys had come in, had all gotten hugs, and he came up, and I was just gonna hand him my hand. He goes, "Where's my hug? I feel so left out when I don't get hugs. Is it just for the gay guys?" And I said, "No, come." I said, "But just know I'm gonna squeeze your ass too."
But let me just say, because this topic I've never done this before. I've never thought about the gifts of being gay, and that sucks, and we definitely need to do this more. But what I'm hearing, excuse me, it's just allergies, I promise everyone. What I'm hearing, for you both, yeah. But what I'm hearing, and I just haven't thought about it before, is that, we're gay, and we have a wider spectrum of experience with humans. Mm-hmm. We get to experience these more tangible connections with men and women that I guess maybe just straight males don't get to do. I mean, it's their choice. They can, I suppose, but I definitely feel that. Like I'm very close with a lot of females. I have plenty of my brothers that we're hugging and we have that type of connection. And I've just never thought about it as being a gift of being gay, but I can certainly see it now. It feels really good to think about that.
Yeah.
I like that word used, Jerry, that was fluidity. Because when I think of like the Kinsey scale, for example, and where someone might lie on that Kinsey scale, and there's certainly people who fall on one end and are certainly heterosexual, and on the other end of the spectrum and are homosexual. But I think truly people in general, I think, kind of maybe slide up and down that scale. And personally, I feel like I do when I'm kind of think about relationships and contact with people, gay, straight men and women, I find myself really kind of dancing along that scale or just that fluidity. Because in some cases, I don't know if this is good or bad, it's just what it is. In some cases where a situation where people may not know that I'm gay, I might dial it back a little bit as far as my expression of that. I might dial it back a little bit until I get to know the situation or the people, and I can be a little bit more myself. And I would say, okay, that's one part of that fluidity on my scale. And then others, I can really kind of flourish and be myself, my true self. Even things like I'm certainly attracted to men, certain types of men, but I'm also attracted to certain types of women physically. And so what does that make me if I were to label? Maybe I don't have to label it. Maybe I can see that as just another part of my, gay gift and gay blessings. Like, I see attractiveness across the scale.
We get to be this.
Yeah.
I love that. I don't like labeling it either. I think you're absolutely right. It's what we get to be. I love that. I'm sorry, but I'm really like taken by this because I just haven't thought about it like this before.
Mm-hmm. Let me, this is a little tangent, but I'm curious how you guys will respond to this. There is kind of a social movement. It's kind of slow, but it's moving. Our history is built around establishing ourselves as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender. And now there's this movement saying those labels are restrictive. We don't like those labels. They separate us. And so there is a movement to get rid of those labels.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Really?
I think why confine yourself? Why, maybe that's part of the gift. You don't have to confine yourself. And so why, march in certain camps? I don't know. I think I think in some ways because there of those groups there are some that are certainly underrepresented, and I think as our community it's important that we identify and recognize them so that they feel a part of it. But at the same time, as an individual, yeah, I'm in different spaces where with sexuality and what attracts me and how I want to be and whatever. And that's a gay gift. And I think that to really feel that experience, it's good to get out of the label arena. They're still there, but I'm saying I like to just dip into different places when I can. And why confine yourself to something?
I think I'm on the fence with it. I like the idea of labels because I think we need to be able to identify things. This is a bowl. This is a chair. This is a table. We do label things. We can identify them. Yet at the same time, especially with personhood, and you may not necessarily need to label, especially if you kind of see yourself not fitting the norms or values of that particular label.
Yes.
You might fit somewhere in the realm of that. I'm gay, but but there's a lot to say about what that is. And so I can just easily say that I'm gay because it's just easy to say.
It's a relief, in a sense, right?
And there's certainly a construct around that. People understand in some ways, and they've got different views of this, of what that means. But but my fluidity within that realm is pretty large, I think. I was talking to a good friend of mine, and her son has identified as bisexual, and he finds that he's just getting ready to graduate high school, and he finds it very important to have a label. And his mom is like, I don't understand. Why do you have to have a label? I think she's kind of with me, just be who you are. Just be, the person that you are, and just show that. But I think for him, in his situation, he said, no, it's important that I can label myself. That way I can represent my community. If I know that I'm this, then I can step out into the world and represent it accurately. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. So
Identity.
it might be a generational kind of thing as far as labels and how we're using them. Because I think for me, it's just kind of easier to say, well, I'm gay. But I just know for me, there's a large pool of what my gayness is.
And I can understand. Maybe it's also not just necessarily generational, but maybe it's age-based. More so when you're younger and you're coming out, it's important to identify so that you can represent a group. But then maybe as you age and get older, you understand, a different perspective. And I think I can certainly feel that way. I mean, I was straight, I had girlfriends, then I definitely was gay and I was in that place. And then as I got older, I realized, I don't have to confine myself to just that part on the salad bar that, it's all open type of thing.
Yeah.
And so, it's experience or an understanding that maybe just came with a bit more wisdom about, myself and how I want to be in the world. But for sure, I can understand how a younger person, especially in high school, you want to grab onto some identity so you understand your place in the world, and that's a good feeling. That feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I go to the salad bar, I stay away from onions. Do not like onions.
Jared doesn't like onions. Note. Noted.
Well, but it's interesting because I'm not sure how I feel about this either. Like when I first read about this movement, I just thought, I'm almost 60, and my coming of age was that whole stand up, be counted, be seen, be out, bring a face to this identity. I certainly believe and can embrace the idea of fluidity, but I know for me in particular, I don't like onions. Like I like if you look in our house, you'll see. I guess it would be called homoerotic art, right? Where there's pictures, of men who are naked, who are, posed in really beautiful ways. I find it equally attractive if it's women. I certainly can recognize beauty and sensuality in all the other genders. I just don't want onions.
Right.
And so I just have no interest anywhere else on the Kinsey scale. And there's some part of me that struggles a little bit with the idea that there's a generation of people who still don't know their history or relate to their queer history, who are saying these labels limit me when it took us 50 years to get those labels on the table and to be counted as legitimate social political identities.
Understood.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And I think I'm also hearing those narratives in other communities. Like there's a whole discussion going on in the Black community about, no, I am African American. Raven Simone was just interviewed, and she's like, I was born and raised in Louisiana, and I have no idea where my ancestral roots are. And Morgan Freeman is kind of saying the same thing, right? So it's interesting, these identity politics are shifting. And I believe in an adaptation to those things, but there's a part of me that grieves a little bit that it's almost like we have to be critical of what happened to our past to move forward in the future. And I wish we saw it more as a stepping stone and a progressive thing, and not like we have to eliminate it.
And quickly get rid of it.
Yeah. And I can't help but to wonder if part of that pressure is in response to, the early gay movement was to try to appear as heterosexual as possible. Right? And that didn't work really well.
To keep it in the closet, though, some men had to present as females, and they were down at the Navy docks so they could get the sailor boys, and like that's how gay relationship could kind of happen. But it was always in the dark. It was always, you're right. I can understand the problem with stepping away from our identities that have been established, because there have been many those before us that have just fought so hard and lost lives, whatnot, to get us there. We just haven't been in the history books for so long.
Yeah. And so it's like, how do we, to me, it's exciting, like the concepts of, when I started my practice, for instance, transgender was not a popular term.
It wasn't a term you used,
Right? And now that we've reached this place of non-binary and the fluidity and understanding gender as a spectrum, what's the word? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right.
Well,
Anyways, it's a continuum.
Yeah.
So, and I count that as a gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's, using a shamanic term, that is shape-shifting at its best.
Mm-hmm.
Like we learn to grow and to adapt and to figure out how to become part of the dialogue. And I think that's a gift.
It is a gift. I'm even thinking, we started talking about, when we talk about gay livelihood, we often kind of slip into the narratives of victimhood and downtrodden and those things like that. And we don't want to dismiss that, just like you're talking about, we don't want to dismiss our history. I think part of our celebratory, looking at this is because there's been hardship in our community, we have resiliency.
Yes.
We're resilient people. And so we can face a lot of things.
You can overcome.
And overcome.
Yeah.
I really see that as a gift. Because of the trauma, the hurt, and whatever is in our past, can build us.
We have
built
that
us
history.
up.
Yeah.
Can build us up.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are faced in the future, or even now with, things that are trying to squash our identity and who we are as individuals, people are stepping up.
Well, and what I love about the resiliency is the creativity.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about, remember when Matthew Shepard
Oh my gosh.
was killed?
Yeah.
And they had those protesters. Who else would think but to dress up as angels and to become like a shield
Yeah.
between the mourners and the protesters.
Yeah.
Or look at Storybook Hour with the drag queens.
Yeah.
And so, I'm always curious, what's the duct tape over the mouth, right? That was kind of a
Adam Buska,
campaign. Yeah, that was a campaign for. I mean, there's some really interesting ways that we've been able to kind of demonstrate our circumstances and to stand up for ourselves.
Stand up.
And I think that creativity is a big piece.
It's a gift.
Yeah,
A gay
truly a
gift.
gift.
Yeah.
And to celebrate that, really, even because I see myself, I'm not that person who's out on the steps of the Capitol and protesting, or even doing the drag queen story hour. I'm not that type of individual, but I can certainly relate to what they're showing and demonstrating as representation of my community. I feel like even though I'm not doing those specific things, I've got my other ways of showing up and stepping up. I often, or really it's been more recent, maybe in the last few years. I've been teaching yoga for a lot of years, but it's only been in the last few years where I feel like the yoga mat is my platform. That's my gift. Like I said, I'm not on the steps of the Capitol protesting, but I can proclaim, human kindness and love and self-love and joy on the yoga mat to the people.
and that's definitely a gift. I was trying to thinking of how to articulate it in my mind, but that's it. It's because, of course, we went through some shit. We've definitely individually, collectively, but it does imbue you with purpose to help others. And it feels so good. It's such a reward. It was horrible, but we're out of it. We've rise from the ashes, and we're creating this community where we're bringing, this is our activism. This is our healing powers that we have from coming from this place of fucked upness. Now we're coming out and we're hosting these groups, and people are showing up and they're starting to contribute. We're building this community of healing and happiness, and it's a gift. It's a gift that we have because we're gay. I don't think that it could happen any other way.
I think our sexuality is. I love to look at images, whether they're lesbians or gay men, but I love artistic images that show people of the same gender in love. And not because it's like some sense of eroticism. I think when I look at that art, I see the absence of gender expectations and rules. And I look at it and think, how can anyone be against this? This feels beautiful. This feels loving. This feels possible for everyone, right? And I love the energy of how we spend time intimately and sexually with each other. That and it's interesting. I think some of the struggles we have in our community are people who kind of get edged out, like they want their sexuality, but they are afraid to let go of their internalized homophobia to access it. Right. But I think finding that liberty to be in loving, touching, sexual embrace it just feels poetic when it's happening. And I think it's a very powerful gift. I mean, again, because I'm on that platform, a lot of these indigenous folks traditionally would see that as magic making.
Yes.
Like if we needed a really potent piece of medicine to happen, then you'd give it to someone who walked that path. And the sexual energy that was created could then be sent into the world.
Yes.
Or sent to the person who needed it. And I thought, isn't it interesting how powerful that can be? That in some traditions it was seen as actual medicine.
Medicine, magic, power. Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I love sex. I love male sexuality. the intimacy, the sex between men, because it's so, I don't know, it's it's just beautiful. It it's it has so many layers to it. I believe it's erotic. It's it can be nasty and deep and dark. It can be very beautiful and light and intimate. It can be very healing. I've had sexual experiences with people where this magnetism, this healing vibration just seems to resonate from us, and felt quite empowered by it. And I wish that on other people. I wish that on straight men. Like, try some gay sex.
You might not be so uptight.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, right.
You might not be so uptight.
You might have more of a smile on your face. Yeah, exactly.
It just feels so liberating and joyous. It got me thinking too, just looking at our diverse community in the gay queer world, all of our leather, bears, twinks, I mean the whole 9 yards, probably more like 36 yards. I mean, because growing, because there's so many ways that you can just be yourself. You know, the other side doesn't. I'm sorry, but you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, the hetero side does not have that. You're absolutely right. We have that option, right? Yes. Like, well, I like big guys that are big and furry and married. Like,
right. Maybe they put on a fox costume. Yeah. Yes. Right.
Well, look. There's a door that leads you right into that. Sure. There they are. There's
and
your
they're
people.
Welcoming. Yeah.
There's your tribe right there.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Or
yes.
you can create it, which is another thing. You can create it.
It's a fashion place. It's a shopping mall of options, right? That's gaiety. We just get to go in and that's intriguing. I'll give that a shot. Yeah, I definitely see that.
So many options, so many ways that you can express yourself, and I think that's magical too. Because if you feel like, assumptions. I'm making assumptions. If you're heterosexual and really kind of on that end of the spectrum. On the Kinsey scale, it kind of narrows your view of life and what you can do, what you're expected to do sexually, socially, etc. Where I feel like in our gay world, our doors are just they're just wide open as far as the possibility.
And more being constructed, right? More and more keep popping up, more options, more doors. Because it is, you're right, but and that one end of the Kinsey scale and that politically and religiously, where those are dictating you need to be, that's just not something that we adhere to so well in our community.
We really have the pathway open for us to choose. We can decide. I'm thinking now just relationships too, and just how we do relationships. You had talked about, Jerry, just the kind of the heteronormative, where there was a point in our history where we wanted to be seen like everybody else, kind of seen like, we can be gay or we can be straight acting too, we're just people. But I think we got to a point. It's like, no, I don't want that. I'm more than that.
What have we done? Yeah,
I love clients say, I just want to be normal, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
That's almost insulting to the spirit.
Oh my gosh.
But I love what you're bringing out about relationships, and this is very anecdotal, so I don't know if there's research about this. But if I have a heterosexual couple come into my office to do couples counseling because there's been infidelity, we are literally talking about, can this marriage be saved?
Right.
Divorce is pending, right? And I will often say, it's interesting how much emphasis you're putting on a sexual behavior to determine the future. But if I have a gay couple or even anyone in the queer spectrum that will come in, frequently it's like, how do we need to define our relationship? What does it need to look like? Like, there's so many more options available.
Well, but let me just say, I'm sorry, but on the flip side, if you're dealing with a heterosexual couple on that issue, you bring in two gay dudes, they're probably asking you how they can open up their relationship, how they
Yes.
could bring on a third partner. Like, that's how they're thinking about enriching the relationship.
Yes.
On the flip side, you know, it's over. Like, they don't know how to get past the fact that this infidelity had happened
Right.
on the hetero side
Right.
of things.
And you're right. I will frequently have people that say, how do we make this work as an open relationship?
Right.
And you know, and I the way I kind of couch that is, you know, I have a brother who is, I can't speak to his religiosity. I know that he doesn't ever go to church. The only time he's been to church is when he got married, right? How many people go to a church to get married because it's the cultural
It's the only way.
expectation?
Yeah.
And my point is how the dogma of Christianity defines so many aspects of people's lives, whether they identify as Christian or not. I'm not Christian, but it certainly influences how I relate and navigate this world.
Yeah.
Right? And if you think about historically, gay people weren't invited in churches. We didn't want you there. And so, to me, the gift was our ability to create our own sense of morality and our own sense of independence about the fluidity of how relationships and sexual relationships would work.
Yeah.
We are free of cultural expectation. You just said it. You said what culture expects us. We know where the straight couples lie. We know it's the man that's the bread that brings home the bacon. It's the woman that stays home and takes care of the babies. Even excuse me, in situations where that's flipped, everyone's like, "Oh my God, the wife is working and the man stays home with the babies."
Right.
And it's so fucked up for people to try to process. But that is a gay gift of ours. Is that cultural expectation is we're like, what? We don't know her. Like, it's not. We're in the shopping mall of options all the time, right?
There's actually relationship research that would suggest that queer folks, gays, lesbians in particular, have much higher relationship satisfaction
totally.
than heterosexuals. And the defining factor is that gay couples actively negotiate what is otherwise defined by gender roles.
Yes.
Right? So two men in a relationship, like for instance, at our house, Bruce typically cooks dinner because he gets home first and he'll cook it. And I just naturally pick up the other end and I tend to clean things up and put things away. He put the effort into, not that was ever decided, but there was just this fluidity, nor is there an expectation based on, well, you're the wife kind of thing.
Right.
And he's much more productive and efficient when it comes to like taking care of sprinklers and the mechanical pieces. And I'm probably much more efficient just in terms of cleanliness and organization and the financial. But none of that was defined by gender. It was kind of like, hey, this is my strengths, here's your strengths,
Exactly.
and let's navigate that.
No, let me say similar with John and I. Like, I know, like just the other day, I was kind of angry because I'm always the one that fucking unloads and loads the dishwasher, and I'm thinking, am I the woman in this relationship? All this stupid shit. But then I realized what it's really about is that I'm an only child. I was raised with parents that had very high expectations of cleanliness, and you walk a line, and it's just how I was raised, and so I just automatically fall into that. The kitchen management, the grocery shopping, making dinner, cleaning up, all that stuff. That's just how I was raised. He wasn't raised that way. He was the baby in a family of 8, and it was just a very different experience for him. His mother was a just absolute amazing person at managing that family. It was a full-time business for her.
Wow.
So she just automatically did these things all the time. And so he's kind of clueless. Sorry, honey. He's kind of clueless on some of these things. But there's so many other things that he brings, just like Bruce, into the situation to make it this symmetrical, beautiful thing. And it just kind of happens.
Yeah. Bruce once said it to a friend of ours. He said, well, I just take care of the things that matter to me.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't matter to Jerry, then I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's interesting because I feel like the things that I really value and think are important to the functioning of the household is where I put my time and energy. And it just so happens in our case, we're kind of yin and yang, like our talents are somewhat opposite of each other, but complementary.
They complement each other. Yeah.
So I let's make this personal.
When don't we? I'm sorry. Keep going. Sorry.
Haven't we already?
We haven't had any tears yet. Come on.
I almost, truthfully, I did almost get there, but I thought, oh, it's too early. I can't find a shit.
I was going to pinch you. And see if
They were close. Sorry. Go on. Sorry.
Well, if you were trying to explain to someone about why being gay or how you view the world is so important to you, like, what would you say to them? Like, if you were, let's pick a parent, right? I had to tell Joyce, if I had to tell Dad, like, this is what I find to be so valuable about who I am and how I show up in the world, and what would you say?
Wow.
Okay, let me try. So I'm doing this. I'm speaking to my father right now, and I'm thinking about him asking me that question, which would be amazing if he ever did, and he never will. But for the sake of this, let's say he did. I think it is because I feel I have a better ability to connect with my real world and my people in the world, and to be in service to those people. It's such a rewarding thing to know that we're hosting these groups and people are showing up and they've needed this so badly, but they've been so hesitant because of all the fucked up shit in the world out there telling them that they can't have this or that because they're not this certain way. And I think I know that's what I've been feeling more and more as we're podcasting more, as we're working more in this group, is that I'm just so grateful that I get to be able to do this. And it's definitely because I'm gay. It's definitely a gift of being gay. It's because I've gone through it. I've had some shit. I've learned how to get rid of the bag of look at what they did to me that I keep dragging around. I'm getting better at not, doing that anymore. And I'm just better at being vulnerable and talking about my problems, which is something I could never do. And knowing that people are out there hearing it and it's helping them. And that's part of this gayness for me, definitely. That's part of the gift of being gay. And I know I don't believe that my father would feel the same way about his existence and his place in this world. Like, I don't think that that's how he's wired. I don't think that he feels that there's a need for him to be like that for people.
Do you know it's Harry Hayes, who's the gay civil rights leader we've talked about in the 40s and 50s, made an observation. He said, it's interesting, our people, see if I can get this, our people tend to show up in very service-oriented ways. Yeah. Hairdressers, nurses, doctors, servers, right? Right? Like we tend to show up in that place of servitude. And he furthered that notion. He said, and he was talking many years ago, but he said, if you think about all the immigrants and the people who came to this country, they brought with them their artisan skills and their understanding of how to make things and to do things. And in some way, they had to kind of establish their right to exist and what they could bring to the broader community.
Sure.
And he challenged us as gay people to take that inventory, to communicate to the world outside of our queerness the value and the service that we bring. So I think it's interesting that you said, well, my gift is this place of service.
I feel that, yeah.
And I think, right, what happens when... I once wrote this poem that said, if you don't like us, then we're going to take everything that we created away. And then I proceeded to point out, like, the Sistine Chapel and all these places, and I said, you don't get to have those things anymore. If you don't want us, you don't get to have those things. You don't get Ellen DeGeneres, and you don't get Elton John, and you don't get the Lion King, right? You don't get all these things. And that was in reaction to Harry's comment when I read that. So I just think this place of service is an interesting, it felt very reflexive for you to go,
Absolutely.
What about you, John?
I have to agree with that. In retrospect, I didn't see this as a kid, but I see this now as an older adult, and feeling now what my purpose is. But now that I know what my purpose is, and it is in a place of service, when I backtrack and rewind the tape and go back to the beginning, everything was in line. Everything was aligned. And I've even had a conversation with my mom and dad about this a little bit more, probably more with my mom, that she also helped steer me in a certain way. Maybe she had a sense that I was gay at an early age. I was born this way. But I think a maternal sense knew that there was something different about this kid. And so she and her husband steered me, I think, in the right direction. Because I remember asking her, why did you put me in Catholic school? They're not Catholic. And the response was, well, we really wanted you to have a good education. And have a nice small setting where you're going to get attention and get the knowledge that you deserve and all of that. And all the people that we talked to, all the other parents, they all said, oh, put him in parochial school. He'll get a good education. So that's what we did. We put you in, and so that's my education. It's all in Catholic schools. And so I grew up Catholic in that respect. Another question I posed was, or the revelation I had was, gosh, what would happen if I didn't go to parochial school? 2, what would have happened if I was straight, especially as a black kid in Oakland? I mean, there was certainly a path that I could have taken. That when I look back, like, oh my gosh, I am so glad I was not steered.
Your parents helped you to get on the right path with those choices. Yeah, sure.
And then and that may have been a piece that allowed me then to, come out as gay and be my gay self. Because I think if I was immersed in that culture, the other culture, I don't know if I'd be where I am today.
You may not have grown up being happy with yourself. It would have been difficult.
It would have been very, very difficult. So, looking back, I'm so grateful that I was born this way and was able to be put on this trajectory that I've been able to, path my way through and get to this point and see the gifts and see the blessings, meeting the right people, being in contact. I mean, certainly meeting Jerry and Bruce were just, monumental pieces in my evolution, my self-evolution, and my spirituality even. And I don't know, I just don't think that would have happened.
I hear you, yeah.
if I was on this other track.
Right.
I'm so glad that I'm gay. Yeah.
That you were born this way.
I was born this way.
I mean, I'm just going to say it because it's an obvious one that we just haven't said. But yeah, then we also generally have more expendable income because we don't have so many kids. And so to me, that's winning. But, but I love gay families and gays. It's a good thing.
Be quiet.
Yeah.
Just sit here and smile.
Everyone out there knows I'm right. Everyone knows I'm right.
Well, I in asking that question, I get to sit here and pause and listen to you guys. But the word that keeps coming up for me is magic and magical. And I've had a lot of unique opportunities to sit with queer folks around the world.
Yeah.
Like Mongolia, you think the closet's bad here, right? Mongolia is just now starting to open the door to understanding gay folks, right?
Wow.
But what's interesting, wherever I have sat, independent of whatever the language is, there appears to be a common understanding, a common relatedness. And when I think about, like, when I've hung out with the fairies, when I've hung out with people in New York to California, and you've certainly have been around the world and have engaged with folks, there's just something magical energetically that happens. The potential happens. I was telling a young man yesterday that came to the house to do some work. When I do a sweat lodge, and if I do a lodge that is queer focused, the medicine and the power and the magic of that lodge is different. I'm not going to say less than or better than, but it is so different than when I have kind of a co-ed mingling of everyone.
Right.
And I absolutely believe that there is something energetic that happens when, look at the three of us sitting here, right, from all different parts of the country, with very different lived experiences, and yet we can sit here and experience deep levels of empathy as well as appreciation and expression. That I absolutely am convinced that we are a magical tribal community, that sometimes we get seduced by the narratives of the world that want to really emphasize our differences. And that's why I think is what's amazing about Mindfully Gay is we're saying young and old, big and small, whatever your reference is, just your piece is critical. And I think we get that.
Yeah.
I mean, if we could turn Congress over to the queers,
Oh my gosh.
the national parks would look fabulous.
So much would get done.
No, but I'm realizing now, like, definitely the traveling that we've done, and, you know, yeah, we've been to plenty of circuit parties, we've been to plenty of gay gatherings, and you're right, it's a very different than as opposed to going to, I guess, an otherwise mixed or heterosexual event. When you go to these gay exclusive events and we're all together celebrating, my God, it is a really, it's profound. It's like,
profound.
because we all know we've been through shit and we've had that together, but then we can come together and really celebrate. And that's what happens at game night. I know it's stupid, but it's just so nice to have us around each other doing something, having some laughs and fun, and it's elevated. It feels at a different level than would maybe a normal, or not a normal, it's not a word, but then another type of gathering, But yeah, it is a magic. It does light up when we come together.
Many years ago, John and I hosted an event at our house. We probably had 15, 20 guys that showed up. It was a larger gathering, and we had, I think it was a Body Central event, and the energy was just palpable in the room. And so we all gathered in this circle, and just our arms around each other, just in this loving, and we breathed, we took breath together, and then we just talked about, think about what the world needs. Think about, let's create this energy, and we kind of created like this energy amongst ourselves, and then we just kind of collectively, with a breath, like released it. And it's almost, you could feel like this hot air balloon like leave the room. And I thought there was so much incredible healing medicine that was released in that breath. And I've experienced that. I don't always understand the fairies' approach to things, but I appreciate the energies that they raise.
Yeah.
And their consciousness about doing that.
Right.
And I've had other pocket-like experiences, which has all been like the catalyst that started Queer Spirit and even Mindfully Gay.
Exactly.
I love that. And I love it when we can bring our spirituality and our sensuality and our campiness and our we have great comedic timing. Right?
Truly,
I mean, I love when all that energy comes together. It's really quite powerful.
It's very powerful. Very powerful. And
But I love it when people say, if you could take a pill and be straight. I'm like,
oh no,
No.
thank you.
No.
No.
In fact, when there's these discussions about trying, I hope they never find the genetic
Yeah.
determinant
No shit.
about gayness,
Oh my
because
God.
if we find it, there are people who will want to eradicate it.
Yes.
And it's like, no, the world needs more gay genes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You. A couple things, magical, and celebration. Two, I think, very important words that we need to slap on to our experience for sure. And Pride is coming up, and it certainly gives us an opportunity to kind of be out there in
Gather.
full glory,
Yeah.
right? In the parades, showing off in all your regalia. I mean,
And jockstraps.
I mean, everything. It's all of it, and I love that, and I love that we have that opportunity, and that's based on our history, and what started, 50 plus years ago, that allows us to be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked about this. We have that opportunity in this celebration of time to celebrate. What we don't celebrate is our coming out.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this, and we've been kind of brainstorming and just kind of putting it out there energetically. What if we also used our Pride celebration in June to also celebrate coming out of the closet?
Like a day of ritual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, there is, coming out day, which is October 10th, I believe.
Yeah.
But is there a big parade or is there a big celebration? I mean, there's no ceremony around our coming out experience,
We're going to create one.
and we're going to create one.
We're going to walk through the veil.
No, but it's we've talked about this before, and I definitely still, it's hard for me because it just, when I think about that, I just think about my coming out, and it sucked, and I wasn't happy, and it makes me angry, and blah 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 blah. And yeah, I would like to reprogram. I would like to redefine it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see how it's hard for me to feel it right now, but I can see how if I can bring my gay family around, we can gather to do this together, how that could actually be a really powerful experience to do something, to hold that for others and for them to hold that for me. I mean, that's, yeah, it's like I said, it's hard to feel it right now, but I can see that could be a transformative thing.
Yeah.
The element that I think could be the most healing, and you mentioned gay family. Melodoma Somé, who was from Burkina Faso, Africa, is an elder that Bruce and I have spent a lot of time with, who's departed. And we've done lots of rituals with him. In every component of the ritual, and he would say in Burkina Faso, in his tribe, in his community, people would know, oh, John's going to go off and do a water ritual. And so they will send him off, and they'll wait for his return. And when he comes back, like, oh my gosh, John is back. And it's not just because he went and did something. They knew that when he went out, he was going out as one person, and he was coming back enlightened. He was coming back different.
Yeah.
Right? And think about when we leave the closet, when we tell that first person, I'm gay, or I'm bisexual, or I'm transgender, you can't go back and say, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
right? You
change my mind.
can't put it back, right? You're different the minute you walk through that veil. And when I think about this ritual component, like what's important is that we have a community of people, so that when someone comes through the veil,
We celebrate that.
we celebrate the new you, the journey you're on. And not only is it just a celebration, it's a commitment. I'm here for you.
Yes.
I'm here to support that vision. I'm here to support what Spirit brought you. And what if we just considered that who we are as gay men is a spiritual awakening, a spiritual calling.
Yeah.
And attached to that is an expectation from the ancestors.
I believe that.
And my commitment to that is, how do I show up and facilitate your calling? How do I hold you up in that?
Yeah.
And so this community piece is more than just a polite applause. It's like, I'm here for you.
I'm here for you.
How do I support that?
And see, and that's another gift of being gay, is that we can kind of go back and litigate. I hate that word, but we can go back and litigate a few things. We can rewrite those.
We can rewrite.
We can change that.
Yeah.
We can, like I'm saying, I'm struggling because I'm thinking about my coming out and it sucked. And, I would like to think about it differently. I would like to have a better understanding of what that, a different understanding of it is. And we can do that together. We have that as a gay gift. We can change those things.
Yeah.
We're creating this ritual as we're talking, but what if we invited family members? Like, we were going to have our gay family there, but Mom and Dad, I want you to be there when I do this, whether they show up or not. Imagine if our families could, in 2024, re-envision or revisit how they might have showed up 20 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. Right.
It's tough, Jerry. That's tough. I like it. It's tough. I'm instantly my instance that's it's not for them. They don't get this. They don't deserve it. It's my dad the other day. Not the other day. It was a few years ago. Sorry, but he said to me, "It feels like the other day. Probably carry it tomorrow and the next day." But he said to me, Bud, if we could do it over, we would have come to more track practices or football games, things that I was participating in. And I was just like, it just crushed me because, yeah, of course I wanted them to show up and see me do this shit that I was doing because I wasn't being supported anyway. And so it just crushed me a bit when he said something like that. And I just had to quickly to get rid of it. I'm like, well, if we get to do it over again, maybe that's what we can do. And it's just, that's where it ended. And we've never talked about that type of thing again. And so, I don't know, in some ways I'm so still resentful about stuff, and I just feel like I don't want them to be a part of my celebration of coming out. But at the same time, I am guilty of not allowing them to grow. I'm guilty of not giving them the credit that, they had to come out to after, and that they've got to go through, and it's tough, Jerry. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
But I like, I do kind of like the idea of thinking that they would be there for that second coming out or that celebration, but at the same time it's kind of hard to, I don't know, I'm struggling a little with it, but yes.
See, it's interesting. I don't know that I have anyone in particular. Like, I'm not terribly invested in how my parents think about things. I think if my coming out could have been different, I wish my ex-wife could have not been caught up in the tidal wave of pain. Like, she had no business being victimized by that.
Sure.
And I'm not, I don't hold on to that because I don't know, in the 90s what my options were. And I really went into my religion and into my marriage with full intent. And it really wasn't until we had our first child, our only child, where I just I was just very conscious about, if I don't stop this now, she's going to be damaged. And I was almost willing to be the sacrificial lamb, if you will. Like, I'll just kind of quietly suffer through this. But then I realized, no, there's too many others going down with me. But I often think it just was not fair for her as this
I hear you.
completely competent woman. And yeah. So would I invite her to something like this? I don't think so. But I kind of wish she could have a ritual where she could feel like whatever weight that she might carry with that it could be shifted for her.
Right. Just as, we have our coming out story and experience, and like you just mentioned, both of you, the people around us, especially like parents or siblings or spouses, they have a coming out experience too. So I'm on the fence with this. Could I see them coming to our ceremonial experience of coming out? yes, no, but maybe if they had something on their own.
Yeah, over there.
They could have refreshments.
Because you talked about, when you do lodge with the queer community, it's such a different experience. When you go on, all inclusive gay experiences, it's a different energy. And I feel like I would want that in my coming out experience. Like my gay family is there. All my gay brothers and sisters are right there. And
we're alive, motherfucker. Yeah, for sure.
Have you ever been to like a cocktail party or just a gathering and it's all like gay men? And then, like the one straight
And then
woman,
record scratch and it's like, yes.
like the one straight woman comes in,
They're here now?
and they could be a completely in alignment ally, but the whole room just
Takes
shifts.
notes. They all take notes.
And what's interesting is I don't know that they notice, but there are times where I've tried to explain to friends like.
You just deflated everything there.
And they're so offended by it. It's like.
It's you, not me. Sorry.
It's just your medicine is different.
exactly. Yeah.
We may have to cut this out.
Oh man.
And I love my allies, and I've got some friends who are listening to this, and I love them dearly.
For sure.
But I do think I think that place of privilege is hard because I think heterosexual people tend to be the norm and the rule. And so the idea that they somehow could influence the temperature of the room is hard for them to hear. But I think it also speaks to our need for community to be able to, when we first used to do Queer Spirit, the biggest criticism I ever got is, well, how come we don't do a retreat for us?
Yeah.
It's like, because every day is a retreat for you.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So our gay blessings and gifts.
Go and send someone.
No, I'm glad we talked about this because I get like a lot of things that we bring up. I don't look at things from this perspective.
Yeah.
And it does. Recognizing that we're imbued with these abilities and these things that are gifts that others don't have, and it's really important to remember those things because oftentimes we just get caught up with all the negative and dragging it around all over the place. But the truth is we can come together and celebrate, and it's a very different experience, and it's a very powerful one, and that's because we have these gifts and they're stronger when we come together.
Yeah. That sounds like a great plug for our retreat. No. Which by the time this airs will be in October.
That's right. That's right.
So, I think the three of us need to keep revisiting this.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would like to.
I love where our conversations are going, but I think we always have to tap into that space of we have the power to engineer the outcomes of our lives. And we have to do that from a place of strength and beauty. And we have to identify ourselves as gay, bisexual, transgender men, that we bring a unique offering to the world.
I like that.
They may not recognize it immediately, but we don't need them to recognize it. We need to
We've got us.
honor it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen. Men.
Amen.
Men.
Gay
Mostly men. Gay men.
That's a wrap on today's episode about gay gifts and blessings. Thanks for joining us and sharing this space to celebrate our queer journeys.
And a big thank you for all your stories and reflections. It's always inspiring to hear how rich and diverse our experiences are.
Remember, every day gives us a chance to recognize and celebrate unique gifts we bring to the world. Keep embracing and sharing your queer blessings.
Don't forget to subscribe and join us next time for more discussions here at the Mindfully Gay podcast. Until then, take care and keep celebrating who you are.